welcome back. Well, now that you know how electricity gets to your house, what about the people that do the work that gets that electricity to your house? You probably are wondering what they do and how they do it. So this topic is on what do people do in an electric utility? Now, if you work at an electric utility, you're a new employee or a board member or whatever, you can walk down the hall and say, hey, what is it that you do here? As long as they don't take it negatively, I'm sure folks would be happy to tell you what they do on a day-to-day basis. I grew up in the auditing business, and you would be amazed, especially if you are on the receiving end of an audit, how little an auditor needs to know sometimes about what people do on a day-to-day basis. Cash is cash, receivables are receivables, and so on. And so it was, shortly into my career, but at least a year or two in before I figured out, hey, I better find out exactly what people do, and I would be better at my job. And then I got into looking at business processes and things like that, and you definitely have to know what people do on a regular basis to do work like that. Why am I telling you this? Well, if you're in the finance area in your office, knowing what people do on a regular basis really will help you do your job, because you'll be able to look at efficiencies and processes and things like that. So in a electric utility or electric co-op, there is a division of the processes, and they follow the process of getting electricity from the source to the end user. So you have power plant operations, you have distribution maintenance, you have engineers that design projects, you have customer service folks that take care of your customers, and you have support functions, what we call general and administrative or G&A. And that is accounting, finance, human resources, information technology, all those support functions that you need for a business, but are not part of the operations side of the business. And let's face it, I'm not calling one more important than the other, but as I said, let's face it, without electricity being delivered to the house, there isn't a need for the support functions. So that's the role that they play. Very important, but not the most important in the entity. And these processes are intertwined and they're interdependent. So again, we have the power supply, which goes to transmission over long distances, goes to distribution utilities, who distribute it then to customers. And those customers use it in their businesses, in their homes, their donut factories, hospitals, manufacturing, retail establishments, and so on. So the positions within an electric operation, be it a utility or a co-op, are a combination of operations and customer service and finance and support. So some of the common positions are a line worker, and their duties include construction and maintenance of a system. Plant operators operate the plant, generate the electricity. Substation technicians take care of the subs. Engineering technicians do design of the system for upgrades and maintenance of the system as well. And some of this work is very physical. So if you see these videos here of line workers doing their work, and when you think of the times that your power goes out, it never goes out generally when the weather is nice. So a lot of these positions that the linemen place themselves in are in inclement weather, cold weather, very hot weather, stormy weather, and so on. So you can see that this is a very physical position, and over time, probably less desirable to your body as it has to go through that physicality of the work that's being done. Just an example of that. Other positions within the utility are meter technicians that install and test meters. And there used to be a lot more meter readers, but now there's a lot more automated meter reading, and that is cut down on those positions. But you still need to install and test the meters. Then you have other technicians that you need for the instrumentation. You'll hear about things like a SCADA system, which measures the flow of electricity within the utility. So that's an important position, and other instrumentation that needs to be taken care of. You have your customer service reps, which are the face of the utility, where you serve customers, pay stations, things like that. You're on the phone with customers, new customers, disconnecting customers that are moving, things like that. Take care of the billing and payments. You have construction crews, which are generally, if it's internal folks, it's a line crew. So again, some of that physicality of the work. And they work on some of the routine projects that go on in the utility or co-op on a regular basis as plant and service gets replaced, as it wears out. And then you have, as I said, those support team functions. So finance, information technology, human resources, management is a support function, even though it is the leadership of the organization. And that kind of rounds out the position. So you see a lot of varied skills, a lot of different core competencies that are needed, some college education, others not. So you see that whole mix. And the industry, again, just like a lot of industries at this point in time, early 2022, there's a lot of open positions and a lot of positions that need to be filled with those various areas. So some of the industry employment issues that are faced is the aging workforce. As you saw in that video, or those videos rather, I mean, the work is physical. If you're out in the field, and let's face it, if you're older, you want to be staying out there when it's like 20 below and it's cold, or it's a hot day, or there's a hurricane or whatnot. So aging workforce is an issue, like with a lot of industries, but line workers are in short supply. And when it comes to industry employment issues, the pool of candidates is small. So there's a lot of choices that individuals have as they graduate from high school, graduate from college, a lot of different industries that might sound like they have a lot of flash that they would want to go to. And in the utility business, it's kind of, has a view of being kind of a stodgy and things like that. But as we saw in the last segment, it's anything but these days. But it has to be a marketing approach to sell people that the electric business is a great business to be involved in and a great business to be working in. Another issue that is that the industry is dealing with is employee retention, especially in the line crew area. What utilities and co-ops do is they tend to poach each other's line crew workers with more benefits, higher pay, things like that, because those folks are in high demand. The process of going through the line worker certification process is you're an apprentice for a number of years, depending on the state, I should say, but you're an apprentice for a number of years, and eventually you're certified as a line worker, and that gets you a good bump in pay. But in the meantime, like a lot of the trades, people aren't necessarily going into that, so it's a real issue with that. And of course, that's not only the line worker position, but experienced power plant operators, meter personnel, finance people. IT is hot for a number of industries, and so hanging on to people is an issue in the utility industry, electric industry, just like any other industries. I also have geographical challenges. What we mean by that is utilities have a defined service area, and there are no other competitors generally in that same service area. Utilities are natural monopolies. So you have some of those issues going on when it comes to bringing people in, and especially if you're not in a large urban area where people may not necessarily want to move to your area if it's more rural and that lifestyle doesn't fit with what they're looking for. Some of those issues arise as well. And then training requirements, as I mentioned, the line worker apprentice program and other positions as well. So training is key. And there's a recent survey of job satisfaction and intent, and this is based on the respondents in the utility industry, but basically this could be true of a lot of industries nowadays. You see a lot of mobility in the workforce, people moving from job to job and things like that. But the question here was, are you considering a move to another sector? And 78% of the respondents said, yeah, they were. And then the question is, well, why? Well, more opportunities, interesting projects, future sector potential, better pay, want to change, other sectors are more aligned with my values, out of work, things like that. But more opportunities is the highest rank in this survey. And I think if you talk to people, you get that same sense as well. So what that means for the utility industry is that they have to show the opportunities, some career paths in their organization, or it's a sales job. So you have to look at your strengths and sell those strengths and hope to attract the right kind of people that will benefit the organization. If you look at the age distribution of the electric workforce, and this is in 2020, you see that among the decades of individuals' lives here, the workforce is spread pretty evenly, roughly 22, 24%, things like that. But, as I said, in some of the areas of the electric business, there's a lot of physical work. So if you look at that 55 to 64 age group, not that those folks aren't fit and fiddle and all of that, but you're in that age group, do you want to be going up in a bucket truck, climbing up a pole, things like that? It's harder to do that kind of work. So hopefully by then, those workers are in a much more supervisory position and don't have to do that work. But it is something that the industry wrestles with. As the population of employees ages, they wrestle with those issues. Not that the folks that are sitting in the office doing the finance, HR, and IT work aren't equally at that point in time maybe thinking about doing something else. So again, it comes down to sales of the business, what a great business it is, and hopefully you attract the right people and retain the right people through that process as well. So like with any industry, you have to have some core competencies. And when you use the word competent, one of the things you think about is, are you competent to do your job? Well, there is a definition of that, and competency is defined as this: a skill, knowledge-based attribute or characteristic that an individual uses to complete their job. Now that sounds pretty obvious, doesn't it? Just a long-winded way of explaining something that is very obvious. But when it comes to how you assemble your workforce and plan for your workforce in all of the areas, you have to keep competencies in mind. And keeping up competencies, especially in a changing business, means a lot of training and things like that. But what this does mean for the electric business, and any business for that matter, is the opportunity to grow your people, sell them on the advantages of working for your organization, and to them it looks like there's more opportunity as their job grows and they're trained and appreciated by the organization. So workforce planning, we'll do this at a high level because I know this is just an introductory course here, but workforce planning, with that core competency, this represents the opportunity to proactively identify and plan for staffing, training, and knowledge transfer. So you plan your workforce, you train them, you get their competencies up, and this gives you time to address some of those things like an aging workforce, retention of employees, and things like that. Where folks retire, you want to replace that institutional knowledge, and you'll have a certain degree of on-the-job training, but you also need a fair degree of more formalized training. And some of the tools that are used for this, one of them is called the utility competency model. And the way the competency model works is you start down here at the bottom when you talk about personal effectiveness. In other words, you interview somebody and set aside any of the job requirements. Are they a good person, or a person that you're comfortable with, that you would like to work with them? Basically that. So personal effectiveness. Then you look at their academics, and then you look at some of the workplace competencies that you're hiring for. Are you hiring for a line worker? Or are you hiring for an accountant? Are you hiring for an HR manager? Are you hiring for a meter reader, or meter technician rather? So you look at some of those workplace competencies, and then you step it up, industry-wide technical competencies, as they grow and whatever, they need to move up levels and have more competencies in their positions. And up to the top of the scale, you see tier 5, tier 6 to 8, where you get a lot more specific in the various areas so that people are well trained and competent in those roles. And what that means is that you can trust them to do the work, you can trust them to train other people, and they are quote-unquote experts in their position. So utility competency models and workforce planning and workforce development go hand in hand in planning for your electric operations and your electric support operations as well. So our key takeaways from this segment here is that the skill sets are varied within an electric utility or co-op, and they run the range of the gamut from operations to finance and everything in between. So a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different education levels, but all of these levels need some type of training to make sure they're competent in their roles. And the industry wrestles with a workforce that is aging, especially in the areas where the work is very physical. So, like I said, line workers are like gold, hard to hang on to them. And so there's a lot of competition for those positions, but not only those positions, many others within the electric organization. One thing I didn't mention is like in the finance area. Well, I can do finance at an electric utility. I can also do finance at a manufacturing facility too. They're not that much different once you learn the industry specifics. So you wrestle with that when it comes to workforce planning and development. And that's why it's key to the industry's future. And developing personnel into various competencies through training is also a focus. So that gives you a brief overview of what people do inside an electric organization. But next, how do we pay for things? Your customers pay for the service that you deliver to them, and how do they do it? So we're going to talk about, at a high level, don't tune out here, keep going, how our customers are charged through their electric rates for the service you provide to them. See you in a minute. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.